Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Welcome to All Things Social Security. I am Stephanie Joy, the attorney at Joy Disability. Welcome to the channel, and I hope you enjoy the video. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Good morning, afternoon, or evening. Stephanie Joy with All Things Social Security and the Law Practice of Joy Disability. Okay, so this is a share. This is actually take two because we had a tech difficulty before. A viewer had asked multiple times and at least a month ago for a discussion on the Social Security ruling 19-2P, which is about obesity and how that is considered in the SSA world. So I think it's a really important one. So I set it aside to be able to take some special time for it. I put together some notes that'll help us better understand what the obesity medical impairment would be, what it would not be, and how we can use it to strengthen our claims. When the shoe fits. All right, so I'm going to go through my notes and I'm going to try to get to a bunch of different points. I don't know if this will come out all at once or be in multiple parts, depending on how long it goes. Could go a half hour, not sure. Okay, so how does the SSA really evaluate obesity in disability claims? And when I say disability claims, I'm obviously referring to SSD, which is the same as SSDI, which equals Social Security Disability Insurance, and the other program, SSI, Supplemental Security Income, which is not Social Security at all. However, the Social Security Administration, can you tell I had the live stream today, 3 hours almost, the live stream that we have on Wednesdays? But anyway, the SSA handles both of those programs. So I know it's very easy to mix up the acronyms, but if there's a D in it, then it's not the welfare SSI, it's Social Security Disability. So that might help you remember it more. If it says the word disability, it's about Social Security. Okay. So the first thing you got to know is obesity is not a Social Security listing by itself. It's not. So if you're looking for it in there, you're not going to find it in the Blue Book. But fortunately, that does not mean that the SSA can ignore it. And it is, when we think about in our general population here in the United States, the level of obesity is really significant. The number of people that are obese. Look at, I mean, I could look at my own medical record and they'll be like, given your height and everything, you are obese. And I get it. I'm always trying to lose a few and I'm rarely succeeding. But anyway, so it's more than overweight, but it's not necessarily a disabling thing, obviously. Okay, so let's get into the nitty gritty. The Social Security ruling we're talking about is SSR 19-2P. And under that ruling, obesity can be a medically determinable impairment. I would almost say it generally is, but I'm not going to just because I didn't go and specifically research the medical books for that. And it can be severe and it can contribute to medical equivalence. The SSA must consider it when deciding a claimant's residual functional capacity. So when we talk about contributing to medical equivalence, which we'll get into in more details in a minute, that is under the listings. And even though it is not in the listings, it can potentially equal a listing if the shoe fits. What you have to know too is that it's not simply about whether you have a certain BMI. There's going to be no such black and white rule. The issue is whether obesity, if it's medically determinable impairment and it's been properly diagnosed, whether it alone or in combination with other impairments, which is usually the way things work, causes real work-related limitations. And if so, is it going to rise to the level or help the other things rise to the level of knocking out all those jobs you have to knock out? So this particular Social Security ruling, 19-2P, replaced the older obesity ruling, which was SR 02-1P. Quite a few years later, as you can see. So this particular ruling explains how the SSA is to handle and evaluate obesity and disability claims under both Title II, which is that SSD or SSDI I was alluding to, Social Security, and how it will evaluate it under Title 16, which is where SSI is located. Two different titles. That ruling will also explain how SSA establishes obesity as a medically determinable impairment, MDI, when the obesity is severe, which, as you know, you have to have at least one severe MDI to get to the next step in the sequential evaluation process. And we do have a full playlist called Sequential Evaluation Process if you want to know what the different steps are. The ruling is also to discuss obesity, how obesity is considered under the listings, and how obesity affects your RFC, residual functional capacity, if you have to get to that step in the sequential evaluation process. So 19-2P matters a lot because it explains that while obesity has no listing of its own, the SSA does have to still evaluate the actual functional effects of obesity in your disability case. And like every other diagnosis, guys, it's all about functioning. It's not so much about the name, the diagnosis, even though you need to have that. That is the easy part. It's the functional results that come directly from that particular MDI or as combined with all those other issues. And you'll understand that more in a little bit. So how does the SSA establish obesity? It definitely doesn't establish it from your symptoms alone. It also doesn't rely on you saying you're obese or your mama saying you're obese. It looks for objective medical evidence, which is very easy to find. That is the least of your concerns. It's not like some diagnoses that you have to go through 2 years of differentials. So objective medical evidence from, and this is important, acceptable medical source. It's not the subject matter of this video, but there is a difference between medical sources, which are all able to be considered for different parts of the process, and acceptable medical sources. And I would recommend that anyone look up the definitions page in the SSA to learn which providers can provide acceptable medical source evidence. I will tell you off the bat for sure, MDs and DOs can. And they've added to that, though, because of the reality that a lot of times we're seeing PAs and nurse practitioners and such. So the evidence that can help, and this is why it's so easy to have the diagnosis in your case. BMI is calculated from the medical evidence that's already in the file, generally speaking. That includes measured height and weight, measured waist size, and BMI measurements over the course of time. So that would be something that would, all of these things really showing up over the course of time. Pardon me, those are the dogs. So we know that us saying we're obese isn't going to hold water. It has to be in the medical evidence. So that means your providers. Often all it takes is a PCP, primary care provider, your family doctor. Because generally, don't we see that they're consistently weighing us, taking our height, that kind of thing, repeatedly over time? And that's why that is a repeated finding. And therefore, the diagnosis shows up pretty frequently. And that's also why medical records matter and you getting treatment matters for many, many other reasons as that I've gone to town on before about treat, PCPs and specialists. And so many times specialists is absolutely needed for other cases, but it's not needed to establish obesity at all. But that medical record needs to have those objective measurements in the file and not just a general statement by the doctor that you're overweight or obese. So you want to have the weight, you want to have the height, so the math calculations can be done. And that being said, a reminder that BMI is not the only relevant factor to determining obesity. In the medical community, it's often defined as BMI of 30 or above, but 19-2P makes it clear that no specific weight or BMI automatically proves that obesity is severe. So you can have a diagnosis of obesity, you're, over the edge, but that doesn't mean it's severe. And even someone who could be 50 or 100 pounds overweight. It's not always severe. Everyone's habitus is different. Everyone's ability to carry the extra weight is different. So it goes a lot deeper than that. But nonetheless, the SSA still has to ask at a later point what the obesity does to the person's ability to function. And that's where it all comes down to. Have a great one, guys. Hey, not quite done yet. I have been told that there's another part connected to this one that's of the same subject matter and actually the same video. So stay tuned if you want to see the rest of it. You'll find it under a title that is similarly titled. It'll probably say part 2 or part 3 or part 4 of the same title as this one. So hope you catch it. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.